so slight change to me. Slight change from me, but it's sustainability is a bit of a passion of mine, and we'll go into what we've done hopefully later on.
Thanks, Richard. Anna, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, my name is Anna Smith. I work for Wood PLC. I'm actually a graduate of Newcastle University. I did an MEng in Civil and Environmental Engineering there. I've been working now for almost 25 years. I had added up and counted on my fingers. And for all of that time, I actually worked within the water industry, or predominantly within the water industry. I'm a principal civil engineer within Wood, and my main role at the minute is being a project manager design lead for predominantly wastewater engineering projects, and supporting Northumbrian Water actually in them meeting their own regulatory requirements. But I have dabbled in a few other areas. I have looked at wind farms and coal mining treatment. So it's not just been solely being wastewater. I have looked at things above ground as well as below ground. I think that's it.
Thanks, Anna. And last but not least, Alex.
Thank you. Yes, I'm Alex Goodwin. I'm the account and product manager at EVS Energy. My background, I also am a Newcastle graduate, hence my purpose on this call. We're a startup business based in North Yorkshire in a small town called Bedale. Our focus is on electric vehicle charging infrastructure. So we prototype, manufacture, install and build IT systems as well for EV charging. I'm sure we'll come back to it a bit more later, but it's more about the infrastructure behind the electric cars, not actually the electric cars.
Great, thank you. So a really nice overview of and variety of areas within the sustainability sector there. And thank you for a little bit of background. So nice to have some alumni join us as well, and certainly companies based in the Northeast. So I guess really my first question to you is just, what does it mean to work within the sustainability sector, and perhaps a little bit of myth busting about what it is. Alex, do you want to start us off on that and your thoughts on what it means to work within this sector?
Sure, yeah. It's quite an interesting one from my perspective, because we're not a energy generating company or dealing with kind of pollutants. We're more on the kind of the start of a brand new sector. EV charging obviously isn't new. It's been around since about, well, at least 2010, and it's picking up pace quite quickly. I think it's big regulation changes with the stopping of sale of new petrol, diesel and hybrid cars in 2030, which people keep telling me is 10 years away, but it's not. It's just over 8, so it's quite soon. And there's a number of challenges within this sector, but I think what's really interesting is that we get to set new rules every day. There's lots of competing voices in the sustainability sector, despite our sector, but some people think the right solution is replacing petrol stations, for instance. Others are building chargers outside your home or workplaces. I sit in the latter. And it's quite interesting being part of those discussions with large companies, new workplaces. And for me, sustainability, there is obviously a large impact on the work that we get to do. So there's quite an intrinsic value to the work. But for me, in terms of this sector, it's mainly about having new challenges every day and having to overcome them. There's no rule book, and it's quite nice to see your work every day be something that you can do differently.
That's brilliant. So impactful, isn't it? And really interesting to hear kind of the development and the changes that you come across every day in that role. Richard, do you want to pick up on that and maybe tell us from your perspective, your thoughts on that?
Well, I think it goes down to the question of what you mean is sustainability, in all honesty, Rona. So we use the 5 capitals for sustainability, sorry, and that underpins everything which we do, which are everything from the natural capital, social capital, human, the manufactured and the financial capital. So it's really as a sustainability of a whole society rather than an individual element. And we'll take that into some of the solutions which we put in place. So for instance, we create power from poo. So every time I say that to students, if you go to the toilet in the northeast of England, it creates electricity. So you're doing some social good from that. And we're also trying to put in all our as many green infrastructure projects as we possibly can to take away that reliance on concrete and steel and everything else that goes in that. It's still a very intensive use of energy. The water sector, it's heavy. Whatever water which you'll get in Tyneside will be pumped from somewhere, probably a number of times, and to make sure it's clean and safe, the water, and also anything on the wastewater which can then be discharged back into the environment. We've got to make sure that that meets all the regulations, as Anna has said, and our obligations to our regulators and to the country. So that is very energy heavy, and we're trying to limit that and as much as we possibly can. So it is a dynamic system, and it's a process where we continually change. And one of the things about Northumbrian Water, if you've got a good idea, we have an innovation festival for every year. If you have a good idea, you can run with it, and the company will give you money to try to bring better solutions and more environmental solutions as well. So not really a very detailed answer, but it's such a wide field. And there's some examples of what we've done. We've diverted the river to put some sustainable drainage systems in, and we did that as a joint partnership scheme with the Environment Agency. So rather than Northumbrian Water do some work and then a local authority do some work and then the Environment Agency do some work, we've set up the Northumbria Integrated Drainage Partnership, where we all work together to get better solutions for cheaper cost and try to get that environmental aspects in there. I've often said to people that when a property is flooded, or when people have, they're not really bothered where the water comes from, it's just dirty water, and they just want people to solve it. So that's the name of the game for me at the moment.
Brilliant, and nice to hear, as a company, you're being sustainable as well as, it's obviously part of a bigger long-term picture.
Yeah.
And you've mentioned already that you work, Anna, with Northumbrian Water. What's your perspective on kind of what the sustainability sector is?
I kind of looked at this from a personal perspective, and I think the one word that jumped out at me was the opportunity. And it's an opportunity for us all to grasp having a shared purpose with clients, with other organisations, with family, with friends, and you can all strive to get to that end point, whatever that end point happens to be. And I think certainly from Wood's perspective, we feel as though we're at the forefront of development in the likes of net zero and carbon neutral schemes, looking at the energy transition. Our background, what it was and still is probably within oil and gas industry, but we're trying to make that transition to renewable energies and helping our clients and partner organisations in making their own transition. Working within the sustainability sector is actually all encompassing. It covers a huge range of job roles, and I think it's such an umbrella term that you could do whatever, you could pick whatever you wanted to, and you would still feel as though you could fit within that sustainability sector. And from my perspective, it was by choosing the path that I've gone down. I know that I'm making a contribution to the wider environment, the wider world, and that to me makes me feel that little bit more comfortable in the work that I'm doing. And it gives you a chance to do something, as Richard said, that you're passionate about.
And that's so crucial, isn't it? It's really nice to hear that you've found something that you can get behind, and it's doing such a lot of good. But there, like you say, there's a huge amount of opportunity out there as well, yeah, which really neatly fits on to my next question. So thanks, Anna. You all mentioned development that's going on, and also the kind of struggles and the things you come up against. There's policy, there's kind of technical, everything, you know, it's clearly a developing area like everything. So I guess my question is, what are those developments, whether it's new roles, new technologies, and what are the challenges that you come up against when you're facing these and trying to improve on them? Richard, do you want to start us off?
Oh, I knew you would come to me first on the difficult one. Thank you very much for that.
There's a lot in there, so
there's a lot in there. So the challenges, I think the challenges is keeping.
Yeah, key challenges you come up against. You did touch on it earlier. Just
so
the sector, or perhaps, you know, kind of developments that you're trying to make, and any kind of challenges you come up against, and perhaps whether that stimulates any job opportunities, that sort of thing.
Yeah, well, the Environment Bill comes out later this year, and I'm part of the team at Northumbrian Water looking at the impact of that Environment Bill, and especially when we carry out works, although it's meant for developers and to ensure that developers minimise the impact they have on greenfield sites. It will impact on utility companies and just about everybody else as well. So we're trying to understand, it's out of consultation. The consultation period, I think, is over. And now it's just understanding what the actual final Environment Bill will look like. It's likely to be costly. And overall, somewhere along the line, there's the demands of customers for cheaper bills, and there's demands for ending water poverty, and our desire to end water poverty. And what we don't want is quite a large element of the region spending lots of money on their water bills, which does really impact on them and their mental and social well-being. So it really goes back to what I said before about the sustainability and the social and human benefits which you get from it, and those capitals. It's trying to link everything you do and look at it from all sides. So you might have some green infrastructure, and the first time we install green infrastructure, the amount of pressure and opposition from members of the public who, you know, somebody asked me, and I'll never forget it because it's in the town where I live in, you know, are you going to pay for the funeral of my child that dies in this open water course? You think, well, there's a stream right next to it, what's the difference? But those are that education of the public. That's one of the big challenges as well, is to ensure that what you're trying to do, that you bring people along with you on that ride, because if you don't, it'll not get done. So it's not only having the good idea, it's being able to sell that good idea and to bring people on the ride. Well, that's a good idea. So bringing the public along and trying to educate them is a big challenge.
Yeah, and so important, like you say, it's you know, ensuring it's a shared experience and message, and making sure everything's linked up. Alex, do you want to comment a little bit on that and any challenges you've come across? And you mentioned already the kind of developments that are and shorter and longer term goals that you're kind of working on.
Yeah, absolutely. I think when you first asked the question, it was basically I was trying to think of 10 different things I could bring out to the most important two. I think Richard probably hit upon the best one, which was probably around educating the public. I think I've done quite a few interviews with candidates. Let's bring it back to the purpose of a part of this discussion today, which is everyone's really interested in, you know, helping support goals around climate change. And I think there's lots of candidates I speak to that say that that's very important to them. Sometimes I do struggle when they try to articulate it. And I think that's partly our fault in that we aren't able to fully communicate what we're doing and why it's so important all the time. Just taking EV charging, I know it's a very specific example, but the biggest problem with EV charging is the reason why we're moving to electric vehicles is because it's better for the environment overall, air quality, just in terms of kind of CO2 production as well. Two things behind that. One, you always need to have renewable energy supplying that energy, otherwise it's not a great effect from it. The other side of it is that people always assume that charging your car should be like charging your petrol engine. And it's the worst starting point for EV charging, because everyone goes, well, EV charging, if I use a rapid charge, it takes 30 minutes. I don't want to sit at a petrol station for 30 minutes. Or if I'm using a fast charger, it takes 3 hours from 0 to 100. There's a couple of key differences there. It's one of the things that we educate the public on, but you will charge your electric car like your iPhone, not your petrol car. There's a term called grazing, which is you're at home, you plug in your iPhone. When you're at work, you plug in your iPhone. That'll be the same for your car. So you never let it go down below 40% because you've always got it plugged in. The problem with petrol engines is you drive from A to B, it gets to almost zero, then you go to petrol station, pop up, then you get on your way. Going to that third location is unnecessary. You should really be doing something else while you're charging your car. If you're at home for 14 hours of the day, pre-COVID, 4 hours is not a problem when you're charging your car from 0 to 100. Same for 8 hours at work. So that's always one of the common things that I stumble across. So there is an education is one of the key things, so changing people's perception of charging habits. I think also it's around issues about why is it that I need to do it? And I think I'll take you to one example. I won't use local council, so that's quite a common one in EV charging, but I'll take a workplace client. One of the things that really indicates how important this work is, when you buy an electric car or get a lease of an electric car, typically if you have a off-street parking, so that's a garage or a driveway, you'll have a domestic charger installed. Now Tesla, from their data, have already shown that 98% of all charging takes place at home. Even though I have a network of highway chargers that Tesla users can use for free, only 2% of them ever take use of it. So charging at home is always going to be the most important, and the reason's obvious because you're always based there. But when you talk about workplace clients, Bank of America, pre-COVID, installed EV charging stations. And within 12 months, 50% of their employee, or 50% increase in EV purchases. Because you get things that's called range anxiety. You get worried there won't be places for you to charge. One of the biggest things that can change the uptake of EV, which needs to happen, is increase in charging infrastructure, but particularly workplaces. If your workplace has a workplace charger, you are 2 times more likely to purchase an electric vehicle. So that is another challenge, which is just around trying to say why it's important, not just bringing the education along, but try and educate clients as well.
Okay, great, thank you. And obviously it's part of everyone's everyday, isn't it? And that workplace is so important in that as well. And I can certainly relate to that. Anna, you mentioned you had clients as well, and that was part of the conversations you were already having. Is there anything that you'd like to kind of add to that conversation?
Yeah, well, actually, I think it's not just the education of the public, but it's the education of the employees as well within the company. In that we've all got to strive towards that end goal, and if you don't bring the employees along, then you're not all sharing the same message, and you're not encouraging everybody to achieve that end goal that you want to meet. And I think that is a key challenge from a business perspective. You know, Wood's got over 40,000 employees. To get all of them educated to a level where we can then spread that message to our clients, it's not an easy task. And things, as both Alex and Richard have said, that things change. You know, things are constantly changing, and it's keeping abreast of those changes. So I think that to us is quite a key challenge. It's education of the workforce, as well as who you want to work for and the wider public. And I think part of that is to strive for a sustainable world. It's a systemic change that's required, and that takes time. It takes time to change culture, and it's those little incremental steps that we now need to do that will start, that will continue to get this ball rolling. So yeah, I think that's probably what I would add to that conversation.
Yeah, and a really important point to make. It's not just a kind of the people you work for and with. It's within your organisation as well, and you're absolutely right. And leads neatly on to kind of recruitment and how you're looking forward. I imagine you're taking on people with that mindset and message into the sector and the company. I would like to just ask you around recruitment, what you consider the kind of key skills and attributes that you look for in candidates, people that are applying, as an organisation, what your kind of, what your key skills and attributes are that you're looking for. Alex, do you want to start us off?
Sure, happy to. I think overall, I think the thing that I always look for in any interview is enthusiasm. I think that really comes across with some candidates more than others, and I think I think that's probably the most important thing going into all interviews, regardless of any of us today or just in terms of your grad search at all. Just make sure you do your research on the company, try to apply what value you're bringing to the position, but also just trying to really bring across you have an enthusiasm to work at that workplace. In terms of our role specifically, currently we've got software developer positions that are on the job boards at the moment. Those are quite specialist by nature. So we build big back office IT systems for all our chargers. One of the things that we have to do is balance demand because we don't want to take down the national grid. So we do things called demand side response, which is around if everyone turned up at work at 9 AM, don't all charge at 9 AM. It's offsetting throughout the day. Just one example of IT. So we have back office systems that are run in AWS, which I know most graduate courses don't cover, but that's something we certainly pick up on the role. What we are looking for are things like, basic coding understanding. So things like HTML, JavaScript, working with maybe a front-end applications like Amplify or any type of understanding of languages, particularly ones that you can transition to other languages. I think once you understand one, you can quite easily pick up another. So we're not too set on that, but we do need to have a basic understanding of software principles, object-oriented programming. Beyond the kind of software side, we do also look at Cad Designers. We haven't got a role live at the moment, but we do prototype all of our products on site. So we have 3D printers running 24/7. So that needs to understand things like SolidWorks or Fusion 360 kind of computer modeling software. That does obviously suit engineers quite well. And then we do also, outside of those, is things like electrical design engineers. So all of these products that need to be installed, obviously on a grid or local grid system, to make sure that we're designing those effectively, as I say, not taking down the local grid or the venue, the distribution boards or community units. Those are always in demand in our sector. I think outside of that, in terms of the wider EV sector, there are always account manager positions. There's always electrical design positions, particularly developing new systems. If I think of any more, I'll bring our player on the call.
That's great, thank you. And a really nice example already of, even within that area, the range of opportunities that you can already explore. Anna, do you want to pick up just along those lines, kind of what opportunities that you have available and the key attributes and skills that you would kind of look for from candidates?
Yeah, definitely. So as I said, we've got quite a wide-ranging pool of people within Wood. So that can cover ecologists, archaeologists, hydrologists, planners, geotechnical engineers. But actually within the water engineering sector that we're specifically looking for at the minute, it is civil engineers, mechanical engineers, electrical control and instrumentation engineers that we're looking for at this point in time. But it's not to say that those other roles are not out there. It's just I'm not party to that recruitment at the minute. And to go alongside the pool of engineers that we do have, we do have CAD specialists, we do have digital developers, and we do have people who work out on site as site supervisors. So there's a huge range of roles that people can join Wood and undertake. So specifically for our civil, mechanical and electrical engineering roles that we've got available at the minute, I would completely agree with Alex, and it's the enthusiasm that you need to drive you forward, and it's having good communication skills and being able to have a conversation like we're having now, and getting your point across quite succinctly, so that even if you don't agree with that other person, you're able to have a two-way conversation and learn from that other person. So it's having a really positive and proactive approach, and to enjoy working within a team. Everything that we do is team based. Yes, you'll be working as an individual, and you'll be pushing yourself. You might want to become chartered, for example, and become professionally qualified. But it's all a team based approach that we have, and it's necessary to have those communication skills, both written and verbal, to allow you to work within that team effectively. So yeah, that's probably where I would push for the skills.
Yeah, thank you. And it's clearly across both of you have commented that that's such an important thing, and personality, and making sure that you show that enthusiasm at every stage. Richard, do you want to comment just to your thoughts on that as well, please?
Well, yeah, so at Northumbrian Water, I think the last count we had over 1,000 different job roles. So there's about 3,500 people, so there's not that many people do the same job. Everything from chefs that we employed to accountants and solicitors and lawyers and everything in between, hydrologists, all that sort of stuff. But from applying point of view, I would say, I've just carried out some interviews for placements, and we do that every year. Every time I go to a university, and I've visited 5 universities in the Northeast, it's trying to people get that enthusiasm, get your point across, but do some research, in all honesty, and try to match your values to the business you're going for and the company you're applying to, and everyone's values and visions will be on their websites, and identify examples of where you match them. And I'll say that all the time, and I can guarantee that 90% of the people who apply don't. And we're very kind. We send out some of our questions beforehand. We're conscious that we're not there to put people under stress and strain. We're there to get the best out of them, and would like to have something to talk about. But really, if you've given a question beforehand, you should nail it, and you can know what sort of questions you're going to get on the interview. There's going to be a question on where you've had a difficult circumstance and what you've done, and people are looking at what you've done rather than a particular circumstance. That's just an example to lead into, this is what I did about it, this is what I learned about it, this is what I'll do differently next time. And it's just trying to get that preparation and to have some thought. There's lots and lots of the jobs out there. So I'm not just here representing Northumbrian Water. We have with our suppliers, of which Wood Group is one of our suppliers. I've got something I can drop in the chat line, which has got their vacancies, and their websites where you can apply for their vacancies. And there's a number of graduate positions in the Northeast and outside of the Northeast if you're interested in that. So I can drop that into them. But somewhere along the line, there's about 20-25 different vacancies in there. But everybody, as Anna said, everybody is looking for where the value is, that enthusiasm. The same as Alex, it's show me how you add value to what you do and how you're going to do that.
Great, thank you. And just so important to match, like you say, your values with the company and be a good fit for who you're applying for. Yeah. That would be great if you can drop in any links that are appropriate or helpful in the chat. Just for anyone who's in the session now or maybe watching afterwards, we will include this in the YouTube channel as well. So you'll have access to any of these links that are put in the chat. As well, if any of the colleagues in the panel are happy to put any kind of email addresses or LinkedIn profiles, we'll drop those in as well for you just while we're at it. So yeah, really helpful to know that, there is that link up, it's not just the company that you're applying for. You'll have access to all these different companies that you're liaising with and clients that you're working with along the way. Such a wealth of opportunity there. It would be nice to hear a little bit about outside of the sort of specific roles that maybe require a certain skill set. If you recruit from different disciplines, Alex, I don't know if you want to start us off. If you recruit into the company from, I don't know, perhaps a zoology student or a music student, for example, is there room in the company for people with different disciplines that degrees that they come from to kind of get into this sector?
Yeah, sure. So a very interesting question. I think in terms of the roles we currently have available, particularly things like software development, you don't necessarily have to have a computer degree to be good at those elements, but you would need kind of prior knowledge and probably some formalised training. We do take self-taught, but obviously there's a technical test to pass. In terms of future positions, I don't believe that the actual course that you're studying would be the main driver for us. I think it's more, what is it you understand about the position? What is it that you can bring to that position? And then obviously assessing if it's a good fit at the time. I think CAD designer, for instance, slightly tough again. That is now another technical post. There are things like junior account managers. My first job out in Newcastle, actually, I worked as account manager for a recruitment firm for a number of years. And I did a politics degree, which I was very proud and happy with. But it wasn't particularly relevant to the position I did. What really got me across the line there was my adaptability, kind of enthusiasm, and then picking up the role as I went along, particularly doing some courses ahead of time and just fully understanding what that role entailed. I think I remember my time interviewing after Newcastle. That was the biggest thing, really, spending kind of a couple of weeks, 3 weeks straight after uni, just interviewing constantly. And it was, do you understand what this role is and what the intricacies are? That's probably my best advice. I think that would be the same for us with any position. But obviously some are going to have more technical requirements than others. It just comes down to the advert and the position, reading those quite carefully.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, you know, the nature of it is there will be some very specific roles that require specific technical kind of backgrounds, but really nice to hear that there is that kind of avenue, and nice to hear that you did politics and have your trajectory has kind of followed that. Richard, Anna, do you want to kind of talk around that as well? The seeking applications from different backgrounds.
I think from my point of view, it's as Alex has said, if there's a specific requirement, you know, if it's civil engineering, you need a civil engineering degree. If it's chemical engineering, but there's lots of rules where you don't need that. So, you know, I work in a project management environment, and we get very, very few people who have a project management degree, and it is normally a second discipline for somebody. So they've been an engineer. I was an engineer, and then you become a project manager. But we've got geographers, we've got chemists, we've got all sorts of different people. You know, our chief exec is a geographer, so I couldn't possibly say anything against that. And she used to run railways, and now she runs a water company. So people from different backgrounds. We took some placements, 27, I think it was, as a whole company a couple of years ago. And I know that some of them have come in to be works managers within Northumbrian Water, so running a water treatment works or a wastewater treatment works. That's not something you can be taught in a university. They're specific to the water industry, and those roles that they're looking for somebody who has a level of qualification, but on top of that is just the enthusiasm, and you will be taught how to do it. So, you know, there's no university for the water industry as such.
Yeah, thank you, Richard. Such an important message, and it's been echoed throughout this session. You know, it's about the person and getting that enthusiasm across, and making sure you do your research and really just look at the role in the company you're applying for. Anna, do you want to chip in and maybe give your perspective?
Yeah, I have to admit that a lot of the roles that we have do require the academic background. To allow you to proceed. So if as Richard said, if you want to go into civil engineering, you tend to have a civil engineering degree to back that up. But having said that, we do have, as I've said previously, we've got a whole host of job roles available within Wood. So you may not necessarily be part of the water engineering team, but you might join the environmental team. And that doesn't then prevent you from working within the water industry, because we rely on those specialisms an awful lot to provide us with that unique information that as a civil engineer I wouldn't have. You know, I'm a jack of all trades, a master of none, whereas some of our specialists do provide that really in-depth knowledge that we would need to make use of to allow a project to proceed. and we wouldn't be able to proceed without that knowledge. You know, we would just be dead in the water. So you might not necessarily have specific skills that would fit within our water engineering team, but it doesn't mean to say that the degrees that you have won't allow you to join other areas of wood, and actually you would then still be able to participate in the water engineering schemes that we do. So it's never a barrier. And again, I would just reiterate what everybody else has said. It's doing your research and selling yourself, and that really makes a big difference, because you can change somebody else. You know, change the interviewer's mindset. You know, if you really put your points across in a really good way. So yeah, you know, there's been umpteen situations where, you know, I've had to rethink my perceptions of a situation because of what an interviewee has said. So yeah, I would, you stick with the disciplines if that's where you want to go. And I had to do that. I knew that I needed a vocational degree to get me into industry, to get me into a career, and so I made that very distinct decision. It was straight after my A-levels. My A-levels have nothing to do with engineering whatsoever. So that's when I made that decision, that change. But if that change is coming after you've done a degree, there are opportunities, and it's learning to sell yourself that will bring those opportunities to you.
Great, thank you. Really good to hear, and it seems echoed across 3 very different companies and areas, but similar ethos and mindset. You know, really, you've got to just sell yourself and research. So I'm going to just invite everyone in the session, if they can, drop any questions in. If you've got anything more general, anything specific, you know, take advantage. We've got 3 colleagues here to answer your questions. If you want to drop them in the chat, if you want to send them privately, no problem. We'll just give you a couple of minutes to do that. While we're just kind of letting people have a think and pop things in, we've sort of covered this already, but 3 top tips from each of you for any candidates or people that are considering applying for the company. And this can be anything to do with the sector or your applications, just 3 kind of key tips that you would kind of give our students if there's something to take away from today. I'm going to let you jump in.
I'll jump in first. And
on the spot this time.
give examples. So give examples of what you've done and link it to what the question is. So anybody who gives an example, you know, even if it's, I've never done this, but I think I would do such and such, is always better than not knowing or being scared to. But the worst that can happen is, you know, you never see that person again. You never see the interviewer again, and that's the worst that can happen. So what? You know, it's your one opportunity, and as an interviewer, you've got to try to bring out the best in people. So try not to be nervous. I hate interviews. I can present in front of hundreds of people, and it doesn't bother us. Stick us in a room with 3 people and I can see the top of their baldy heads like you'll see the top of my baldy head, really does drive us up the wall. So I think, you know, try to remain calm. Also ask, and also last one, ask questions. If you're not certain, ask, you know, can you just explain that again? Nobody's going to mind, you know, I think you mean this. Is that right? Is that what you're after? And lastly, if there's a silence, don't feel as if you have to fill it, because people are just trying to catch up. Don't put your foot in it, really. Thanks, Richard. And you're right, interviews don't get easier, but practice, I think, is the thing, isn't it? That's really helpful. Thanks. Anna, Alex, what would your top tips be from today?
So I think it's actually having a bit of a think before you go into an interview. Think of those examples, and it can be from a part-time job that you might have, it might have been from work that you've done previously before you've gone to university, your university projects that you might have done. Look at how you've worked well, and look at where things might not have worked very well, and where things didn't go as planned, and what did you do to put things right? How did you solve that problem? So that will be my first thing. I think second one would be actually read your CV before you go into the interview. It's amazing how many people do a fantastic CV and then they completely forget about everything that's on there, and quite often that might be prompting them to say, well, what about this? And say, all right, yes. So yeah, have a think about what's in your CV before you go in. And then actually, and I think we've probably already said this one, is actually do your research and read about the company that you're going into, because quite often you'll be telling me something that I don't know, because you'll have that opportunity to do that reading around of the company that I don't have the time to. So it's a really good way of breaking the ice when it's like, oh, I didn't know that, I didn't realise we did that. So yeah, those will be my top 3.
Fantastic, thank you very much, Alex.
Yeah, super. I mean, I'm going to try not to repeat myself in terms of the enthusiasm and things of those, although that is obviously the most important. I think I've seen quite a few horror stories over the years. I think we all have. And I think all of what's been said so far has been perfect. I think just to add something new, one thing that people forget to do, they always research the company. What really shows that you're doing your research the competitors. See what other people are doing. Because when you bring that, typically the company that you're working for are also keeping an eye on their competitors. And it's something that they appreciate that you've done that research. I think it's probably touching on Richard's point about the examples and Anna's as well, but bring examples that are relevant to the role if you can. I think one of the questions I asked recently for a candidate was if they could show where they've tried to expand their skill set for it to be better at their job or to be better at their role. They gave an answer. It was around working in a bar a couple of years ago, and they don't know how to make pizza better, but they were just to appreciation for the kitchen staff. It's a good answer, but for the position that you're talking about, it'd be nice to see what have you done to try to build a skill set for this role or this type of field that you want to be in. I think the other one as well that I always found quite impressive for some candidates, because it is a bit of an art interviewing, it's a necessary evil, but it's quite a good art. If you've got things like, when was the last time you suggested an improvement at your last company or your last organisation, those kind of show good critical thinking or judgment. Those are always good to bring in. I think that's probably the main 3 for now.
So helpful, thank you. Yeah, to all of you, and really, really key and important things and small changes that you can kind of make just to give you that confidence before you go in and really stand out when it comes to interview. That's great.
Can I just add one to Anna's?
Of course,
and what I should have said was, so you got the CV and your covering letter. Make it specific, especially your covering letter, to the job you're applying for. And I always say, don't let somebody discount you at the first stage. So you typically will interview about a quarter of the applicants that you'll get. You don't want to be in that 3/4 by having a rubbish CV and a rubbish covering letter. You want to say, it's not a case of just ticking the boxes, but when the job advert says something, make sure you cover what it says in the job advert. And simple things, put an address to number of people. I will get a number every year where I would like to tell them that they're unsuccessful or successful, but there's no way of contacting them. So that, all our applications go into an anonymous email address, which is then circulated by our HR teams. That's lost. Once it's been circulated, that's been wiped. We don't keep people's details for years on. Once that exercise has been completed, I can't go and say this particular email, who sent that. It just doesn't tell us. So make sure you do things don't be stupid. Basically, just make sure you have a letter, you have a CV, it's addressed to the right people, it's for the right job, and you try to cover everything which it says in the job description. Thank you. Yeah, small but a really important one, isn't it? And one that you'll take with you throughout every job application you do. It won't just be, this job and this time. It'll be so crucial as the years go on. Okay, well, we've not had any questions come in, so I'll just begin to wrap up. I just wanted to mention as well to the students that a lot of the stuff covered there in the top tips especially, if you want to come into the career service as well, you can do kind of practice interviews and get your CV checked and all that stuff to help. If you know you're about to apply for any of these roles, come and talk to us and we'll support you before you do. I'm going to put in the chat as well. We've got to get ready to graduate